Welcome to WION Live Broadcast with me, Susan Tehrani, in New York City. First, let's take a look at the latest stories making headlines this hour. Russia formally notifies Ukraine that the Black Sea grain deal stands terminated from July 18th. Russia says that it will return to the landmark agreement if its conditions are met. UK expresses disappointment. EU terms Russia's move cynical, saying the Kremlin was weaponizing hunger. This even as Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan insists that he believes Putin is keen that the humanitarian bridge be extended. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's sister dismisses the idea of talks with the United States as daydream. This comes on the eve of the first U.S.-South Korea talks on nuclear deterrence and ramped up cooperation between them in response to the North's weapons test. South China coastline braces for Typhoon Talim, expected to make landfall near Guangdong late on Monday. Authorities have issued flood warnings, canceled flights and trains, and ordered people to stay indoors. And Harry Maguire is stripped from his role as Manchester United's captain by manager Erik ten Hag. Bruno Fernandes is set to take over as skipper for the new season. The future of the Black Sea grain deal is in limbo. Russia has halted the grain deal, highlighting uncertainty over global food supplies by closing a crucial export route from Ukraine, one of the world's top suppliers of wheat and vegetable oils. The decision announced by Moscow comes a day after a deadly blast on Crimea's bridge. Waterborne drones struck the Seoul Bridge connecting Russia to the annexed Crimea Peninsula. The Kremlin has blamed Kyiv for the drone attacks, which killed 2 people, and shutting down Russia's key artillery for military and civilian access to the peninsula.
A girl has been injured. She has moderately severe wounds. She is already under the care of doctors. Andrei Ikonikov, the Minister of Health of the Belgorod region, is in touch with her. The hardest thing is that her parents died, her mom and dad. I gave instructions to Andrei Gridnev to contact the relatives as this family is from Novoskolsky district.
Moscow says the two events are not related.
Поэтому ее действие прекращается. Как только российская часть договоренности будет выполнена, российская сторона вернется к реализации этой сделки.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, however, says that Russia wants to extend the Ukraine grain deal, despite Kremlin's comments to the contrary.
Despite today's statement, I believe that the President of the Russian Federation, my friend, Mr. Putin, wants this humanitarian bridge to continue.
The landmark deal brokered by the United Nations and Turkey, signed by Moscow and Kyiv in July of 2022. It allowed Ukrainian grain to be exported through the Black Sea. The deal has been extended several times, that too at the last minute. But this time, Russia has been saying for months that conditions for its extension had not been fulfilled.
Она остановилась, зерновая сделка остановилась. Как только будет выполнена российская часть, российская сторона вернется незамедлительно к реализации этой сделки.
Russian President Vladimir Putin had held a phone call with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa discussing the grain deal. Putin reiterated to Ramaphosa that commitments to remove obstacles to Russian food and fertilizer exports had not been fulfilled yet. Meanwhile, EU chief Ursula von der Leyen has condemned Russia's decision. She branded the move as quote-unquote cynical. Britain, for its part, says that the move taken by Russia was, quote, disappointing and accused Russia of risking global suffering. So the big question now is what will happen as the deal ends? The prices for some staple foods would likely rise, but the situation is better than in the months after the war started. Grain supplies have improved from other producers such as Russia and Brazil. Last week, data showed that wheat prices have fallen about 17% so far this year, while corn is down around 26%. The current global food crisis, however, is far from over. The World Food Programme said last month that multiple emergencies had overlapped, creating the largest and most complex hunger and humanitarian crisis in over 70 years. In 2022, a record 349 million people experienced acute hunger and 772,000 teetered on the edge of famine. For more on this, we are being joined by journalist and political analyst James Jackson from Berlin. James, good to see you and welcome back to WION. So the United Nations Security Council is expected to hold a meeting today and discuss the grain deal initiative. How likely is it that we'll find some kind of solution to this crisis?
I think it's really hard to say whether it's likely or not. Right now, Russia has, in the words of EU Council President Ursula von der Leyen, found a pretty good excuse for this breaking off of the grain deal. Now, the grain deal, which was backed by Turkish President Erdogan, was quite a good way. The extension was something that Russia had complained about before, but they've found a very good excuse with the bombing of the Kerch Bridge. And so, of course, Russia sits on the United Nations Security Council. So it doesn't seem clear that there would be any change in this, that the other members of the council would be able to convince them, because it seems like Russia has found the perfect excuse to not extend it, which then puts pressure on the rest of the world, who have been backing Ukraine quite forcefully for the last few months and even years. And actually, it seems like Russia could is worried about losing leverage. Right now, Russia has leverage, Putin has leverage over all of the countries that are dependent, because I think one thing we are going to see absolutely, and are seeing already, is that wheat prices are going up. And that, during a time of high inflation across the Western world and in other countries as well, is a pretty useful weapon in Russia's arsenal.
So Russia says that it's going to get back in the deal if its expectations and demands are met, notably fertilizer and whatnot. So what's holding up that?
I think the biggest issue for Russia is that they don't like being under Western sanctions. Now, of course, the Agricultural Bank is not under sanctions, under specific sanctions, but all Russian banks have the SWIFT ban, which means that financially Russia is locked out from the global financial system. So they will always be able to say that as an excuse for why they can't sell things, particularly fertilizer, goods which aren't really under sanction. They can point out. But remember, before this, Russia weren't happy with the deal either, before the bombing. So why it should have changed now, it's not clear. But it's also not clear
James
how...
Jackson, thank you so much for joining us on WION.
Thanks.
I apologize. I thought you were finished with your sentence. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thanks.
In a signal that the U.S. is seeking increased cooperation with China, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said on Sunday that the U.S. is, quote unquote, eager to work with China on areas of mutual interest. Yellen, who is in India to attend a key G20 meeting and hold talks with top Indian officials, said that her recent visit to China has put U.S.-China bilateral relations on a surer footing. She added that the two largest economies of the world have to, quote, cooperate on areas of mutual concern. Yellen's primary focus will be on fixing debt restructuring for poorer countries and reforming multilateral banking institutions. Yellen pitched for a common framework on restructuring debt for foreign countries. She particularly referred to China's debt restructuring plan for Zambia and said that creditors, including the International Monetary Fund, must follow the same principle. Take a listen.
We should apply the common principles we agreed to in Zambia's case in other cases, rather than starting at zero every time, and we must go faster. Our hope and expectation are for Ghana and Sri Lanka's debt treatments to be finalized quickly so that the IMF can move forward with their first program reviews by this fall.
Yellen also put forth her new vision for global multilateral lenders, arguing that they need to expand beyond their poverty reduction goals. She added that these institutions now need to also focus on tackling global pandemics and climate change. She said that the world needs better banks, and not bigger banks.
First, I'll work with the World Bank and my counterparts to push for a framework and principles for the targeted use of concessional financing for global challenges. This will enable us to deploy concessional financing toward areas of greatest impact.
The countdown is well and truly on in the 2024 U.S. presidential race, with fundraising events and campaign strategies now taking center stage in the run-up. Campaign finance reports as of June 30th have been submitted to federal regulators, and while Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former President Donald Trump eye a larger share of the Republican fundraising pie, Team Biden has shockingly managed to outbeat them, raising $72 million in funds. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has raised $20 million, but his campaign is burning through the cash at a very quick speed. He has spent nearly $8 million since he entered the race in late May. DeSantis entered the second half of the year with $12.2 million remaining in his bank account, but only about $9 million of that is available for spending in the GOP primary. Donald Trump is relying on his grassroots supporters and deep-pocketed donors, while Trump leads the GOP field in polling, raising $17.7 million during the second quarter. Most of the funds were transferred from a joint fundraising committee that also sends donations to a leadership PAC, Save America. He reported $22.5 million in cash as of June 30th, topping the GOP field. The campaign finance report also underscores a stark divide between those who raise substantial sums like DeSantis and Trump and funds raised by other well-known political figures in the race. Firebrand Republican Vivek Ramaswamy has loaned his campaign another $5 million, with a total of $7.2 million in the second quarter. His fundraising will help boost his chances of qualifying for the first Republican primary debate on August 23rd. Languishing at the bottom half of the rack is former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. According to his filings, he brought in less than $1.2 million since entering the race in the first week of June. His poor numbers have raised questions whether he can gain the support among his party. Though U.S. President Joe Biden and the Democratic Party raised a staggering $72 million to spend on the 2024 re-election campaign, Biden, who launched his campaign in April, spent just $1.1 million in the second quarter. By contrast, former President Barack Obama's campaign had spent more than $11 million on his re-election efforts in the same window in 2011. Though Republicans are racing to gain a financial edge over Republican rivals for the White House, reports claim that it has only deepened worries among some of the Democrats about President Biden's campaign. Our next story takes us to the U.S. Our next story takes us to the U.S. Virgin Islands, where a high-stake legal battle is unfolding between the government and banking giant J.P. Morgan Chase. The The U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Justice is demanding a staggering $190 million from the bank, alleging its involvement in the notorious Jeffrey Epstein case. According to court documents, the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Justice claimed that J.P. Morgan Chase failed to adequately scrutinize Epstein when he was a client and even benefited from his abhorrent sex trafficking activities. The battle doesn't end there. The government is also pushing for stringent measures to prevent human trafficking, along with the hefty monetary demand. The government wants J.P. Morgan Chase to bring in an independent consultant to devise strategies aimed at preventing human trafficking. They are determined to eliminate any economic incentives that may lead to the underreporting of suspicious activity. Additionally, the U.S. Virgin Islands seeks to implement stricter customer verification processes, including confirming basic details before opening a private account. The government is calling for increased transparency and accountability within the banking system, determined to prevent future atrocities. J.P. Morgan Chase, on its part, vehemently contested the U.S. Virgin Islands claims. The bank asserts that the government's damaged territories and theories are misguided and intended to challenge them in court. Since the lawsuit was filed in December 2022, both parties have emerged in a blame game, each accusing the other of complicity in Epstein's sex trafficking operations. In a separate lawsuit, J.P. Morgan Chase alleged that Epstein paid the college tuition of the children of former First Lady of the U.S. Virgin Islands, further intensifying the legal battle. After 2 years of delay, Tesla's first Cybertruck is finally here. Elon Musk led Tesla's first electric pickup truck, and it has finally managed to roll off the assembly line, years after the first prototype was revealed back in 2019. Amidst much fanfare, great anticipation, and an even greater production delay, Tesla has finally built its first Cybertruck, marking a huge milestone for the electric vehicle company. Wedge-shaped, angular design, distinctive stainless steel body, which Tesla calls the exoskeleton, the Cybertruck looks nothing like a traditional pickup truck. However, some car analysts believe the Cybertruck isn't for everyone. The Cybertruck is marketed as a niche product, but it looks like the EV's futuristic design has gained some mainstream fans. Tesla's announcement on Twitter is getting massive traction with over 57 million views. Tesla aims to start mass production of the Cybertruck by the end of 2023. The Cybertruck's release coincides with increased demand for electric cars, increasing concerns about climate change and a need for sustainable transportation solutions. From European royalty to stars of the big screen, the men's Wimbledon final hosted several A-listers. Here's a roundup of some of the biggest names spotted at the final. Actor Brad Pitt was seen in the first row watching the action. Pitt's appearance was not surprising as he has been filming an upcoming Formula One movie in the United Kingdom. Pop singer Ariana Grande was also spotted at the sports event in a rare public outing. She was joined by actor Andrew Garfield and Jonathan Bailey, who is best known for starring in Bridgerton. Other attendees at the match included Hollywood actor Daniel Craig, Hugh Jackman, Emma Watson, and Tom Hiddleston. In addition to the Hollywood celebrities, the British royal family also attended the tournament's final match. Last year, Prince George made his Wimbledon debut at the men's finals alongside his parents, Prince William and Prince Kate. This year, the Prince and Princess of Wales returned to the championship with him and brought Princess Charlotte along as well. And what a night it was in Miami. Even rain could not dampen Lionel Messi's big night in the United States. The Argentine World Cup winner has been unveiled as an Inter-Miami player in a blockbuster ceremony in front of a packed crowd that waited for hours to see the league's new superstar. Messi's unveiling America quite literally began with a bang, lightning, and thunderstorm, but nobody seemed to mind the downpour as there was not a single empty seat at the DRV Pink Stadium. They had been waiting 6 weeks for this night since the Argentine captain announced his move to Florida. And here he was, in the flesh, wearing the pink jersey of Inter Miami with the iconic number 10 on